As you may know, when I was on the campaign trail in 1912, just as I was making my way in to make a speech, I was shot. Shot as I was walking in. And I continued to walk. And I went on to give my speech, although a shorter version than I had intended. I had just been shot. But fortunately, I had my manuscript with me. You see, I had intended to make a long speech that night. But there is where the bullet lodged. That's where the bullet went through. And it probably saved me from it going into my heart. But I wanted to take advantage of this situation. I had altogether two important things to think about than to fuel any concern over my own death. And I told them that I could not speak to them insincerely within 5 minutes of being shot. I wanted them to understand I was ahead of the game anyway. No man led a happier life than I lived. Happier in every way. I was able to do a number of things I greatly wished to do, and I was interested in doing other things. I can tell you now with complete truthfulness that I was very much uninterested into whether I was shot or not. I didn't know anything about the man who shot me that night. He was seized at once by one of the stenographers in our party, Mr. Martin, and he went directly into the hands of the police. But he shot to kill. I didn't know who he was or what party he represented, but I know this. He was a coward. He stood in the crowd, in the darkness, around the automobile, and when they cheered for me and I stood up to bow, he stepped forward and shot me in the darkness. Now, I did not know, as I say, anything about him, but it is a very natural thing that weak and vicious minds should be inflamed to acts of violence by the kind of abuse and mendacity that have been heaped upon me for 3 months by the daily newspapers, in service not only to Mr. Debs, but also Mr. Wilson and Mr. Taft. I would disown and repudiate anybody from my own party who would attack another opponent with such foul slander and abuse. And I wish to say now, seriously, to all the daily newspapers, to the Republican, the Democrat, and the Socialist parties, they cannot, month in and month out, year in and year out, make the kind of untruthful, of bitter assault that was made upon me and not expect that brutal and violent natures or brutal and violent characters, especially when the brutality is accompanied by not a very strong mind. You cannot expect that such natures will be unimpressed by it. I wish I was able to impress upon our people the duty to feel strongly, but to speak the truth. I say now, I never said one thing against an opponent that I can, on the stump, that I could not defend. I said nothing that I could not substantiate, and nothing looking back at that I wouldn't say again. It ought not be too much to ask political opponents to make up their mind to speak only the truth and not use the kind of slander and mendacity which, if taken seriously, must incite weak and violent minds to acts of criminal violence. My friends, every good citizen should do everything in his or her power to prevent the coming of the day when we shall see in this country two recognized creeds fighting one another. When that day comes, incidents such as the night when I was shot will be commonplace in this country. When you permit the conditions to grow such that the poor person will be swayed against those who try to improperly hold of what they have won, when that day comes, the most awful passions will be let loose, and it will be an ill day for our country. Rich and poor, whatever their social or industrial position, must stand together for the elementary rights of good citizenship in this great republic of ours. In a republic, to be successful, there is a need to learn to combine intensity of conviction with a broad tolerance of difference of conviction. Wide differences of opinion in matters of religion and political and social belief must exist. If conscience and intellect are not to be stunted, if there is to be room for healthy growth. Bitter hatreds based on such differences are not signs of earnestness of belief, but of that fanaticism, which, whether religious or anti-religious or democratic or anti-democratic, is itself but a manifestation of the gloomy bigotry which has been the downfall of so many, many nations.